Alright, let me just start checking in here. Hi, Love Triber. We just had Robin's Realms readings a few moments ago, but as the channel was loading up, everything crashed on YouTube, so I'm having to reboot everything again. I hope a few people show up. I'm just going to set up the Astrodoodle for the day. So please bear with me. Okay, we've got the Sun in Libra, Moon in Pisces. We've got Neptune in Pisces as well. They're conjunct right now. So if you're feeling really spacey, don't worry about it. You can blame it on the planets. This is Mercury. And we got Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter over here. As usual, the usual suspects, at least for now. We've got Uranus over here in Taurus. We got Mars in Aries in very challenging conditions. We got Venus in Leo over here. North Node is still in Gemini over here. And that's the essentials. Chiron is over here too. Very awkward, very awkward placement. And Eris is over here too. I'm just going to mark Eris in here as well. I might as well. And Eris is very angry right now, as you know. And it's a tricky one to deal with. Yeah, so give me a second. I'm going to load these up, color everything in just for the day, just to get us rolling here. Greetings, this is Tarot Lumination. This is a Tarot Lumination Astrodoodle for the day. It is Wednesday, 30th September 2020 on Pacific Standard Time. I'm just going to pencil in a few sweet things just so that you don't get too miserable about, life in the world and everything. So Mars and Venus are luckily very happy right now together. That's nice. And also Mars is, nice with the North Node. That's fine. Super duper. And we have a lot of harmony between all the Capricorn and Pisces energy over here. Okay? So that's really sweet. I'm going to leave it like that. The rest of it is a little bit awkward. Let's just say that to the least. The Sun is directly opposite Chiron and Eris over here. And we have a lot of contention between Mars and all of this. So this is a very high pressure axis right now. And this, as you know, is going to be ongoing loosely through the whole month. We've talked about this before in some of the other shows. So I just want to put this on record here for now. And then I'm going to go back over here. Let's see. Give me a second. Nikki. Hi, Nikki. Hello, Tina. What's going on? I hope the storms have settled down over there in sunny Texas and you're back to the nice balmy Gulf of Mexico weather. Oh, thank you. Oh, yeah, if anybody wants to put in donations, you're welcome to do so. Thank you so much, Nikki. I'm going to, I have actually a couple more notes that I wanted to add to my items for the day over here, and I can't quite remember them. It's something to do with revolutions. I know it is something to do with revolutions. I could probably make a note of that over here in terms of history. Not that I'm a historian, but I am curious about these things. Regarding the Pluto return. We're going to come talk about that later. And all the convulsions that come with it. I'm going to just do it like this for now, just to remind myself. So when we get there, for the USA, of course, that will come up a bit later. Good afternoon, everybody. We'll see who shows up. Let me just see who's out there. Nikki's up here, I think over in the New York area, right there. Tina is over there. Greetings. Love Triber's over here. Earlier we had Robin's Realms readings. She's over there in Texas. And we've got some world issues going on here. Let me just say and check in with you and say hi. Greetings. We made it. We actually made it, everybody. So over here, like I said, there's Nikki. There's Tina. There's Love Triber. And Robin is over here. Maybe we'll get a few people from Australia or New Zealand or India. We've had people from all over the world, but it's been a little bit quiet lately. Sometimes we get folks from jolly old England over here. And recently we've had Tassa Art, who's over there in Belgium, the Netherlands area. And anyway, well, let's keep going. Hi. So, there was a big thing last night in America. I didn't watch it because I didn't want to, because my personal opinion is that it was just going to make me very confused, and it's going to be very chaotic, and it's just like a puppet show where there's a lot of strings dangling and these people are fighting each other like and so that was the presidential election debate, and we're going to have several of those before November the 3rd, which is the day of the general election in the United States of America. So, you know, I'm not a financier, I'm not an economist, I'm not a politician. Nikki finally got a notification. Wow, I know, it's a miracle. It's very frustrating sometimes because my channel only issues about a 1% notification rate. It's just very, very tiny. I can't control it anymore. Our wonderful friends at YouTube have decided that that's how it is for this channel. Instead of like 10 or 20% notifications going out, I get about 1%. So the only people who ever know about the channel anymore is the people who know about the channel. Unless you just, you know, you're cruising around YouTube and you just bump into it by accident. So anyway, I don't know if you noticed, but I was saying, I didn't watch any of the campaign or election stuff, you know, between Democrats and Republicans, because I feel like I just want to stay out of it. I have my own personal opinions, but my tummy is rumbling. It feels very, very uncomfortable, and if it gets to the point where my tummy is rumbling because of psychic events and world events, that means it's big. It means it's a problem. So, and it's not just me. The whole planet Earth is kind of convulsing right now because people are slowly starting to wake up. There are some massive historical changes happening for the whole of planet Earth. And it's not... Wow, they stopped only... Wow, I didn't know that, Tina. It's creepy stuff. Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. Love Triber gave me a couple of heads-ups recently. That's the thing I wanted to point out. Hold on. Let me go over here. I want to write it on my notes. That was the other thing. Thank you, Love Triber. I'm going to talk about this, but also Facebook. One thing, Facebook over here. Starting tomorrow, October the 1st, Facebook is going to exercise its constitutional right to free speech to do whatever it wants. And how does that look to you, the people? How does that look to we, the people? Basically, Facebook, as you know, is a hardcore, radical, left-wing agenda type of organization. They try to make it look like they are universally, let's say, acceptable to all types, all people, and that they allow a platform from freedom of speech. But the reality is that they're highly selective, and they censor a lot of materials and content. And so, as from October 1st, I believe that's the date. Correct me if I'm wrong, Love Triber. 1st of October, Facebook has made an announcement that it is going to censor anything and everything that it does not like, according to its own personal discretion. It doesn't matter who you are or what you are, and they don't have to provide any reason, simply because they own the platform. Mark Zuckerberg himself has come out and stated this, and his main concern is that he doesn't want the world to go crazy on his watch. So he's making it his business to censor all the material that goes through Facebook. Basically, anything that he doesn't like is just going to get cut and removed from Facebook. So you can imagine what that means for, let's say, freedom of speech. Okay? Hello, Robin, you made it back. Thank you so much for dropping in. Facebook October, we're going to go into mass censorship. Okay? And next thing is our dear friends over here at my host platform, over these folks, they're doing something similar now. These folks, they also have a very, very radical kind of, I call it like it's sort of like a communist Marxist agenda. It's a very wealthy monopoly. These are both massive monopolies. Both of these organizations, as you know, have massive influence and massive wealth all across the world. Facebook is huge outside of America. 80% of Facebook is outside of America. So you can imagine the power of Facebook. And the same thing with YouTube. Now, YouTube has a bigger audience in America, but YouTube has now started doing radical censorship on anything it doesn't like, which is basically typically anything against the, let's say, conservative right wing, okay? Censorship. So it's becoming quite aggressive. And just today and yesterday, a few channels on YouTube have been completely blocked and shut down regarding the topic of cryptocurrencies. And as you know, if you've listened to this channel a few times, cryptocurrencies, I know it sounds kind of cryptic with the name like this, because the whole idea is that they're supposed to be secret and private and anonymous and outside of the world of fake money. So cryptocurrencies, by definition, are a threat to fake money. As you know, in the United States of America, let me go back to my notes here. One of the reasons that YouTube is censoring channels around cryptocurrencies now, they've started to shut down and block several very popular channels. The reason they're doing that is because they do not want public awareness of cryptocurrencies to go beyond where it lives already. There's too much interest, too much curiosity, too much excitement, too much expansion in the world of cryptocurrencies. That's a problem. That's a problem for YouTube. It's a problem for Facebook, because both YouTube and Google and Facebook, I should put that as Google over here, which is also now called Alphabet. So they're doing these folks over here, they basically have global monopolies. They have total monopolies inside the United States and essentially across the world. And so they are exploiting their monopolies, and there's very little to stop them, because they have so much money and they have so much power, and the people who benefit from Facebook, in other words, the corporations and the marketing companies and the governments, are not rushing forward to censor Facebook or censor YouTube or hold them accountable according to American law. the rule of law, where monopolies are forbidden. So the reason why monopolies are forbidden is because over time monopolies tend to be very unhealthy for the masses and for the population, and they tend to exploit and distort. They tend to exploit the populations, and they distort the economy in favor of the monopolists at the expense of we the people. So that has been an American philosophy for many generations. And the thing is, Facebook and YouTube are so powerful that they've managed to get around the monopoly laws to this day. So censorship is very active with Facebook, very active with YouTube. And anything that they don't like, they are starting to block it and censor it and diminish it. Okay, it's very similar to what's happened to my channel. My channel is not dead, but I'm operating under a very suppressive algorithm. YouTube denies it, of course. Anyway, I don't want to moan and complain too much, because the thing about these incredible companies is that they have connected everybody in the world to everybody in the world. But it has come at a great cost to your privacy. I don't really use Facebook. I use YouTube to run the channel. So I'm very, very grateful. But I'm very concerned about the rights to privacy, and I'm very concerned about freedom of speech and the censorship that is starting to happen on these massive global platforms. Basically, I mean, it's going to sound a little bit politicized, but basically, these guys are very, very interested in working like China. They specifically want a left-wing radical Marxist government inside America that fits very well with their monopolistic business models, because it works really, really, really well for Facebook and YouTube and Google and companies like that to have monopolies, to have totalitarian dictatorships. So there's very little incentive for big parts of the American government to stop these people. So these people just keep going and growing and attaining greater and greater power. My personal feeling is that I'm scared. I'm personally scared. Facebook and Google and YouTube and everything, God bless them, because they've really, really changed my life and helped my life, YouTube especially. They were built over here, and this is where much of the astronomical amount of the brain power from the world comes, from this area over here and this area over here. But there's a lot of brain power over here too in China. Now China, as you know, operates as a totalitarian, violent, thuggish dictatorship. And it's a communist, Marxist, Leninist agenda. And we have essentially what is theoretically completely the opposite. Sadly, over the last 250 years, just like a ticking clock, exactly in parallel with the energies of Pluto, our identity as a nation, because I'm an American citizen, I'm an American person, so I personally identify with America and certain parts of American culture. What I'm noticing over here in the years that I've been living is that the America that I knew when I was a child has become extremely degraded and corrupt and perverse and unhealthy. There are a lot of things that I think are very sick with America. I see the United States as a very, very sick country right now. I see this whole thing is heavily diseased, like it's been infected by a massive cancerous tumor. So let me go along over here. Like, for example, here we are today. This is today's chart. Hello, Ivona. Hello, Marlena. Marlene from South Africa. South Africa. Let me just check. Hold on. Let me see if I got that right. Hello, Starzy. Hello, Hello, Marlene. I believe, Marlene, you're over here in South Africa. Correct me if I'm wrong. Ivona is over here in New Jersey, right? Starzy, can't quite remember. I can't quite remember. You'll have to remind everybody. Robin is over here. Nikki's over here. Love Triber's over here. Yeah. So, for the last few days, I've been feeling kind of queasy and nauseous in my stomach because I'm very, very unsettled by what is happening in America, because that's affecting the rest of the world. And I don't want to linger on the subject too much because it makes me feel kind of nauseous. But this thing, okay, this thing is almost dead, okay? It's like the United States is walking around completely riddled with terminal cancer. And it has become metastatic cancer throughout the whole country, from the top down, from the federal government to the state governments to the local governments to the cities and the towns and the streets, the colleges, the universities, the banks, the legal system, the educational system, and especially the healthcare system, and our societal system of how we look after ourselves as people. You know, sometimes they say you can measure the health of a society by the way that it takes care of its people, how the leaders and the governors take care of their people. Now, there are different types of societies, and every society has its, weaknesses. Over here, about a century ago, they decided, the fellows over here in Russia, they got very, very sick of having a totalitarian monarchy. Extreme wealth of the monarchy, while the rest of Russia was just crippling poverty, okay? Russia is kind of landlocked, so they never had a lot of opportunity to explore the world. Like England was very, very globalist in terms of the way it adventured with ships all over the world. But Russia was very, very kind of, insulated. You can't really do much from up here. They can't do too much from over here. So anyway, what happened is the general population of Russia over here started a revolution, and they decided we're going to take down our nasty kings and queens and monarchs, and we're going to replace them with leaders from the people. And of course, that was the birth of communism and the Russian Revolution and the little tiny bits that I know. And so what happens is the new revolution basically replaced something with even worse. In other words, these maniacally frustrated, angry people decided we're going to take over now, and we're going to tell everybody what to do and how to do it just the way the other people used to do, and we're going to make sure it all works properly. So they created this theoretical utopian model of communism where everything is under command and control from a single authority at the top. It is a complete and utter totalitarian dictatorship because they have decided in their own intellect that they know what is best for you, okay? And they impose that on you using violence if necessary. And so that's what you have kind of in Russia today, or until recently, until the last 40 years or so, where they decided, when basically Russia kind of collapsed with the fall of the Berlin Wall and all of that in the 80s. I was much younger then. So what happened? The whole Marxist-Leninist agenda became very, very popular with cultures all over Europe, America, South America, Africa, the Far East, because it seemed so appealing. It seemed so much like a solution. Finally, we have a solution by some really, really smart intellectual people who are also happen to be thugs and they endorse each other. Let's do this thing. We'll create these totalitarian regimes, these utopias. Look at like Cuba, Venezuela, some of the Central American countries over here, a lot of places over here, and eventually, in 1949, I think it was 1949, the Chinese people did something similar. The Chinese people got sick of all their chaos and poverty, just complete. People were looking to start something new, and so a bunch of intellectuals created the Communist Party that we know today, which was modeled on the Marxist-Leninist agenda built by Marx and Lenin over in Russia here earlier on. And so the way I look at it, China has a birthday, just like America has a birthday. We consider the birth of America as 4th of July, 1776. Well, it just so happens I look at China the same way, and I attribute China to having a birth date. And when I look at that birth date, it comes up like a chart, just like a person, and it has characteristics, okay, that can be attributed to a country in the same way that you can attribute astrological characteristics to you, the person, okay? And we do that here like in personal readings and private readings and all that, and we show astrodoodles and all that stuff. And so, anyway, as you know, years ago, I wrote this book about global restructuring starting January 2020. And it's very much connected to the Pluto cycle. Hold on. I'm not going to really dig into it, but that's the book. I wrote that years ago, and it's all coming true today. Global restructuring starting January 2020. If I was really smart and I had the time and the energy, I would write a whole new chapter on the back of this book and reissue it as the revised edition and put it out there again and sell it all over again, because I'm starting to get the same nausea type of feeling that I started having in 2016 and 2015 and 2014 when I was starting to sense everything for 2020. I started making notes many, many years ago. And the more that I made the notes and the more that I studied, the more I realized 2020 was going to be a monumental year for global history. And so here we are. It's happening. And this is just the start, okay? So let me kind of illustrate this a little better. Hold on. I have to go over here. All right, let me see if I can do this. Okay, here's a little chart for today. Let's just put that on record. This is the astrodoodle for today. 30th September 2020 in America on the West Coast area time zone. This is a universal chart for Earth. We put Aries on the horizon. So, like we've been talking about for a while, this is a long-term, ongoing aspect right now. Mars has been traveling for months through Aries, and we still have months to go. Mars is retrograde right now, so it's very kind of a very frustrating kind of energy. A lot of people feel it's very hard to get anything done, anything constructive. And it's in a very heavy, tight square with Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter, the reality check police, all working over here like a hit squad. The cops, the good cops, the bad cops, and the exterminators, okay? The pulverizers, the crushers, who come in and do the cleanup and do the total demolition. So this is all happening right now. So all this energy over here, Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter in Capricorn, is very, very much about the story of America unfolding right now, because guess what? America was born 4th of July, christened 4th of July 1776, where Pluto was in birth at 27 degrees. And right now, we are here at about 24 degrees. I've talked about this before. So over the next few years, up until about March 2024, we're going to be going through some really cataclysmic, cathartic changes and convulsions inside America. And it's all very, very tied to the movement of Pluto. This is historical energy. If you look at this, this is sitting here. This is the energy today right now, and all of this is sitting on top of the world right now. So let's place this on top of the United States. This is the United States. Let's give the United States its own little birth chart over here. Okay, so this is the United States birth chart, created as a Terra Lumination Astrodoodle. Thank you very much. I should put my signature here, because you never know. I could sell this on eBay for millions of dollars. So, over here, this is the United States. So, the United States, 4th of July, 1776. This is what the astrology looked like. We had the Sun in Cancer at high degrees, Mercury in Cancer at high degrees, and we had Jupiter and Venus all spread across the 30 degrees spectrum of Cancer, up there in the natal 8th house, the energy of other people's money. Money is an extremely important aspect of the American chart. Why? It's because the planets here are posited in the money chart, the money houses, the 8th house and the 2nd house. Now, in any natal chart of a person, if I see somebody born with planets in the 2nd house here, I know that money and talents and gifts and finances and resources are an important aspect of their life. Now, with America, it's very important because Pluto is in Capricorn 27 degrees. America is born that. This is like America's birth chart. So just look at this. It's an almost exact polarity between Pluto and Mercury. In America, the Mercury is retrograde at birth. So it's constantly trying to fix and repair itself regarding finances. As you know, America is very turbulent in terms of its own internal finances. It's always looking for ways to improve finances for everybody, the governments, for the people, for the banks, for everybody. And for that to happen, we the people, which includes the government and the banks, has to be willing to live through a continuous process of creative destruction. Sun, Mercury, Jupiter, and Venus, the very creative energies over here about what are we going to do with money, especially like Wall Street, banking, bankers, investments, insurance, capitalism. How are we going to make that work in really, really good ways that are very satisfying for home and family in terms of day-to-day business, and it's fun and it's creative? Those are very classic energies of American culture. At the same time, it's heavily opposed by Pluto and Capricorn over here, which is born to destroy anything and everything over here that is not honest, not true, not authentic. Pluto in Capricorn, or anything, Pluto in Capricorn represents the energy of big government, big power, big banks, big finance, big wealth, astronomical wealth, extreme. Pluto's the planet of extremes. So Pluto in Capricorn in the 2nd house, what does that translate to? Okay? Extreme wealth for this entity that we call the United States. Extreme wealth that comes with great responsibilities, with great power, with great governance, and with great long-term legacy implications. All of that is undermined by the creative energies over here that wants to do it in its own way over here. For example, expanding and growing the domestic housing market in America for we the people. The American economy is heavily centered around consumerism about the home. Like, in America, it's like the whole economy is built around homes, families, plumbing, electric, televisions, computers, gardens, gardening, bigger homes, bigger homes, fancier homes, neighborhoods, constructions, remodeling, mortgages, second mortgages, home equity loans, debt. Okay, this is the house of other people's money. So all of that energy, all that really wonderful, beneficent energy over here is contrasted by this heavy oppositional energy over here, which basically says, well, wait a minute, we have to turn this into a business. You can't just go out, like in the very early days of American history, as far as I can tell, it was all about freedom. Okay, the South Node in Aquarius over here. America was born with a natural tendency to seek freedom, independence, and liberty for all. Freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of self-expression, the right to protect and defend ourselves over here. Okay? That's all born into our identity. That's not going to go away. And so, in other words, what I'm describing is essentially America as it looked when it was born. It's a very idealistic energy. Aquarian is very idealistic. It wants a kind of a utopian agenda for we the people, and that's how they were built. The early settlers came from Western Europe mostly, thinking that this was a promised land. And they settled all over the United States very quickly over a period of time, and they had these powerful homesteading acts where the self-imposed governing bodies over there in Washington basically declared to the new immigrants, please go forth and multiply, everybody. Go forth and grab land and report back to us, and we will set up this country. We will build this thing called the United States of America. And so people moved westwards, and they colonized the whole of America. Of course, at the same time, they walked all over the native population, but that's a whole other story, a whole other video. Right now, Native Americans and the early Mexican Latin culture were already existing here to some extent. And even before, what was it, the Mayflower in the 1492, there were still people coming from the West over here. But in general, the population of America was only about 10 million people, 10 million Native Americans and a handful of, Spanish missions over in this area here. The rest of it was just wide open wilderness. And I believe the Native Americans loved it that way. Nature. Very little in the way of fences and roads and boundaries. Everything was about nature. Chief Seattle basically stated that we do not own the land owns us, So the land is sacred. Anyway, the people came in from Europe. They created this place called America with this kind of identity, which is the identity under which we live today. The thing is, this whole thing is extremely sick. When it was given birth, it had this amazing momentum. And over a period of about 250 years, as Pluto goes through its transit, it has become more and more degraded. Okay? More and more degraded to the point, here we are, almost 250 years later, to where we get to about the year 2023. Okay? Around the year 2023, things are going to become very tumultuous for the United States. Okay, we're building up to this right now. So what I'm trying to suggest is if you can imagine a ticking clock, okay? This is the time of birth for America. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. History, wars, different governments, different states, California, Washington, Oregon are founded and blah, blah, blah. It keeps going around, and then, like world wars and World War I and World War II. And all of a sudden, here we are in the 20th century. Now we're over here in the 21st century, and we're reaching this point of critical mass here. Can you see this, the way I'm trying to illustrate it? This is where we're reaching a point of critical mass, because the planet Pluto in our charts today, over here, okay, Pluto is about 24 degrees. And over the next few years, it's going to traverse this section over here. It's going to go from, sorry, I'm going to try to do it. Pluto is sitting about here right now, but eventually it's going to creep towards this angle, okay, from here to here, and then it's going to cross. This is about a 4-year period, okay? You see this little thing here? Allow for approximately 4 years. And my personal opinion, okay, this is where it gets personal. My personal opinion is things are going to get extremely distorted and wacky and convulsive over the next 4 years before Pluto moves into Aquarius. Once Pluto moves into Aquarius for good and there's no more retrogrades back into Capricorn, we are going to enter a new chapter of American history which is going to impact the rest of the world for global history. Because what's going to happen when Pluto goes into Aquarius, it's kind of a hard angle because Pluto is like the Scorpio energy, okay? Aquarius is like in a what they call a hard square. So Pluto is not very happy in the sign of Aquarius. Pluto is happy in the sign of, it likes Capricorn, it likes Virgo, it likes Scorpio and Cancer and Pisces. It kind of likes Sagittarius too, but it's kind of uncomfortable with Pluto in Leo and Pluto in Aquarius because of these sort of, it's naturally in tension with itself. Anyway, that's another video. But for now, what I'm trying to... Hello, Gabby girl. So, what I was trying to illustrate with that little doodle right there is that over the next 4 years, starting about now, I've been looking through charts. I'm going through over this over and over again. I'm going to be studying this over the next few years, and I'm going to try and stay as far ahead as I possibly can and share what I discover with you. What I'm discovering is that America is going to become very repolarized. It's going to become very, what I would call, sick. It's going to reach a point of critical mass. It's going to be the same kind of energy as a very sick person who is in denial of how sick they are, and they're kind of wandering around. I don't know if you've ever encountered people like this in your life. They're sort of like walking dead, walking zombies. They might be very, very sick, like psychologically, emotionally, financially, physically. They might be behaving very irrationally. For example, they might present themselves as these wonderful creatures, like there's absolutely nothing wrong with me, and yet to an observer there's something very, very sick, and there's an extreme denial because it's especially when it comes to psychological, emotional stuff, heart-centered things. When United States is born with Pluto in Capricorn, so by definition it likes and wants to exercise power and control in terms of governance, management, top-down control, basically like what we have in this country. Okay, in a very, very business-like way. America is built on a free market capitalist structure, which is a very Capricorn thing. And all of that is under threat right now. You could argue all day, which is better, communist, monopolistic, totalitarian command and control, absolute control with no privacy, or do you want free market economics where you as an individual have a chance and a right and obligation and a duty and an opportunity to thrive by being yourself? Which would you choose? Some people choose this because it's easier. You don't have to think. All you have to do is what you're told, and you give up your soul. You sell your soul. Okay? Over here, we choose to retain our identities, and we're constantly at war with ourselves. We got basically Sun, Mercury, Jupiter, and Venus at war with Pluto. Okay, so America is constantly convulsing, but it's got to the point where America as an entity, it can't cope anymore, and it's starting to crumble. It's already crumbling. You've already seen it. Everybody around the world knows that America is kind of going. America, there are different perspectives. You can either look at it as, over here, we have all these massive glaciers that are shedding massive icebergs. Okay, so I was talking to Love Triber the other day about how do we describe these things. So, like if in America, if you create an analogy where you look at glaciers, because they move very, very, very slowly, and they're very, very big, and they're very powerful, and you can't stop them. Think of that as like the energy of Pluto. Now, it's the same kind of thing I'm trying to describe in terms of avalanches in Switzerland, for example. So let's just say you're on a big holiday cruise over here in Iceland or something, or Greenland, and you're on a cruise ship and you're looking at glaciers and whales and everything. Or you're over here in Alaska on a cruise looking at glaciers and whales, things like that, okay? And the tour guide is going, hello everybody, look at over here. Here's an amazing glacier. It's been sitting like this for 130,000 years. And as you can see, it hasn't really moved very much. But if we had a time-lapse photography system here, you could actually see that the glacier moves like a sheet of ice that is slipping into the ocean. Okay? And everybody on the cruise ship goes, oh wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And everything looks peaceful and beautiful. And then suddenly there's this big rumble and shake. Like, and then there's this massive collapse, implosion, when an iceberg falls off the end of a glacier over here and over here. This is where a lot of icebergs are formed, over here and over here. Now the thing is, it's very, very hard to predict when icebergs are falling off the end of a glacier. And so you'd never know it's happening. But I think it was earlier this year, there was some amazing news story where there was a cruise ship over here, I think it was, where they were doing their cruise ship thing, and they went right up to the face of these enormous glaciers. I mean, like, there's the cruise ship, and there's the glacier, okay? And then that particular day, the glacier decided to shed an iceberg, and it kind of went, and of course, everybody on the cruise ship, they took out their smartphones and they were taking pictures, and the ship was going like this, and everybody thought they were going to die. In fact, the ship was far away enough that they didn't get hurt too badly, but it was a very terrifying experience. So the reason I'm telling that story is because I think it's sort of analogous to what's happening in America. The same thing with an avalanche. When you have an avalanche in Switzerland, which is what they have all the time, every year they have massive avalanches, you don't know you're going to have an avalanche until you have an avalanche. Everything looks beautiful. The mountains are covered in pretty snow, and there's little cottages everywhere, and people are skiing and doing all these wonderful things, and all of a sudden, people die. Anyway, the avalanches and the glaciers, they're very hard to predict, but we know they happen. So in America, we're at this point right now where we're falling apart in the same way that glaciers just suddenly drop off, icebergs just fall off the end of a glacier. And you can't really stop it. So the way I see it inside America right now, we're at this tipping point. We're reaching this point where everything is starting to crack and rumble and shake. And these are, right, whatever's happening here in 2020 with all the global virus thing, the China virus and all the lockdowns and the financial paranoia and the economic mayhem, these are just the early stages of a big crack in the glacier, okay? Where everything suddenly goes. And my personal view is that we're going to see an incremental falling apart of America. I mean, I love America. I'm proud to be American, but I'm also feeling very sick and sad for America because I absorb the energy of America as though America is in my soul. I can't help it. I was born that way, and if you saw my own personal charts, you would understand. Okay? So, my personal feeling is, like a lot of you here today, we are alive today, whether we like it or know it or not, because in somewhere in our, in our heavenly condition, we decided we want to incarnate now because we want to live through this experience. Okay, so we can witness and observe this time in global history. And so over the next 4 years, because of what's happening in the United States, specifically the United States, where the United States is going to go through its own natal Pluto return, which is going to be tumultuous. It's going to be devastating for some parts of America and Americans, and it's going to be the rebirth of a new America. Okay? America will still be here, but politically, financially, economically, it's going to be a very different world. We're still going to have highways and interstates, houses and whatever, but the way it all operates is going to be very, very different. And so we're going through that right now, and it's happening very, very slowly. Why is it happening so slowly? Let me show you. Like, you remember what happened in 2008, 2009, which was when Pluto was just about over here. Okay, Pluto was right over here at the 0 degree point where Pluto left its 15-year journey in Sagittarius, and it came into Pluto in Capricorn. And like clockwork, very predictable, the global financial markets imploded in sequence with the implosion of Wall Street and the banking system and the government inside America. So that was the very first signal that there's something very wrong in the last section of the journey of Pluto over its 245-year cycle. So that happened in 2008. Now we're here at 2020, at this part of the ticking clock, from here to here. So we're here right now, and we have 4 more years, okay? Roughly from here to here. And what is happening now today in terms of the American economy, the American government, finances, banking, is much bigger and much more extreme and much more frightening than whatever happened in 2008, 2009. So, hold on, I'm a little bit thirsty. Give me a second. I got some electrolytes. Don't worry, Gabby, the light will prevail. Okay, remember, America is born with a tremendous amount of light here. We have Sun, Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury all piled up here in Cancer. Okay, we're not going down, Gabby. Don't worry. It's just we're going to change. We are in the process of extreme convulsive change. We're basically going through the birth canal right now again, because when you get to a Pluto return, it's a much bigger deal than a solar return. Like every year, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. Those are solar returns, okay? We're not going away. America is still very strong, okay? And we're not going to give up, but we are going to change, because this one here takes 250 years just to do one single Pluto return. Okay? And this is where we are right now. We're at the very last stages here, the last 4 years. This is going to be the most convulsive, tumultuous time, perhaps in American history. I'm not sensing too much in terms of nuclear war, but I'm sensing much more like convulsive internal revolutions in terms of banking and finance and corporate governance, which could get very, very ugly. In other words, financial warfare, legal warfare, political warfare, internally with the United States. And as you can see, that's already happening today. I try not to watch the news because it makes me feel nauseous, okay? Exactly. The pandemic is killing us. Now, I don't want to send a link to this video that I saw the other day because it's very disturbing and it's very negative, and it'll just make you depressed. But some people call the pandemic, they call it a plandemic, a scamdemic, because it's like it was deliberately planted by these, let's say, power elites like the governments and the banks in order to distract we the people while they try to propagate their very, very dark totalitarian agenda across the world, especially across America. Because basically, if they can break America, they can break the world. In other words, if the powers that be who want to do this, if they can turn America into China-America, they will have succeeded. And that will be the end of America as we know it. That will be the death of America. If we turn into China-America, it's the death of America, and we will end up living as a totalitarian regime under the guise of what looks like democracy. It'll be a total facade, a total lie, a total sham. And that, the people who want that to happen are here, and they are very loud and very strong and very powerful. Hint, hint. I'm not going to say their names, but we talked about them earlier. Okay? Those folks here and certain other political groups who are very interested in this stuff are very interested in turning us into China-America, because it would work really, really well from them. They would have a complete totalitarian state. They would have a complete surveillance state. There is no privacy. Everything is done by command and control from a centralized government and a centralized banking system. The Federal Reserve has now moved its offices inside the U.S. Treasury. So we are seeing the beginnings of the most evil thing possible. That is the classic example of when like countries and empires start to collapse, because the United States, as you know, is extremely heavily indebted, and we can't possibly repay our debts. So what the federal government and the Federal Reserve are trying to do is inflate their way out of debt by printing so much money and spreading it all over the world like jam and melted butter, so that everyone who owes us money and everyone to whom we owe money, we can pay them back in dollars that are incrementally worthless, but we get to fix our books. It's still impossible. We will never be able to pay down $26 trillion of debt. It's impossible. So, in other words, we are looking at an implosion. We are looking at a slow motion implosion. Okay? It's just like watching those demolition videos, you know? You know, you've probably seen them on YouTube. It's fun. It's like those demolition videos where they take an old skyscraper and they trash it, and the whole building kind of goes. But it's great when you do it in slow motion. You can even see it, like, you know, when they have all these conspiracy stories, which, who knows, maybe they're true, about the World Trade Center and how that was all a big scam. You know, when in the year 2000, like, America needed a war. We have to create so much fear across the world that it gives America the chance to go to war and do the things that it does. Okay, you know, it's evil. It's truly, truly evil. But that's how some big governments work. I'm kind of ashamed of that because I'm an American, but that's what America does. America has weaponized its dollar. America has turned the American dollar into a weapon. I'm just going to pull a dollar bill out of my wallet and show you. This thing here, okay? It's becoming more and more and more and more worthless because they're printing more and more and more and more and more and more of these. There's so much of it that they're just going to turn it into a digital currency. CBDC, Central Bank Digital Currency. That is money that is created directly from the Federal Reserve Bank and issued to everybody in America through the federal government. Because as you know, if you watch this channel, the federal government works for the Federal Reserve Bank system. It's a beautiful thing. It's basically, you can, it's fake. And as you know, it's all an illusion, because every time they, increase the pumping of money, the value of your existing money just goes down and down and down. So you end up paying more and more and more and more dollars for the same thing. So does that make you feel rich? To me, it makes me feel poor. When you can buy a house for $80,000, 20 years ago, but the same house is now $300,000, are you rich or are you poor? Figure it out. You make your own decisions. Anyway, it's getting very extreme now, because that's the mega plan. That is the agenda of the Federal Reserve, because it doesn't have an option anymore. It doesn't have any way to become an honest bank. From my perspective, it's even though I'm attached to the federal government in some way, all of us are in America, and the state and local governments, it's still a massive facade. It's a massive fraud in some ways. And they get away with it because they can, because they run the printing presses. And the closer you are to the printing press, the more advantage that you have. In other words, Wall Street and Washington, they're very, very, very close to the Federal Reserve. So they are the ones who benefit, while we, the people, suffer. We are the debt cows on the debt farm. The debt farm is owned and operated by the Federal Reserve, and it's and the federal government. So we talked about that in other videos. So let me keep going. Exactly, Nikki. Keep the masses in fear and separated. I mean, the whole idea, as far as I'm concerned, of the pandemic, the scamdemic, the plandemic, was to terrify the people, terrify the world. And I believe, it sounds like I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I'm really not. I just think humanity was eventually bound to be diseased on a global scale, which is what a pandemic is. An epidemic, when they had the Spanish flu, that was an epidemic. It killed like 40 million people or whatever, all across the world, in World War I or World War II, I can't remember. And we have epidemics all over Africa, all over here, all sorts of epidemics, epidemic flus. But that's different. A pandemic is literally global. And this is really, truly the first global pandemic of this scale. The flu is sort of like a pandemic, but we're used to it because it just goes all over the world every year like clockwork. And everybody accepts it. People die. Hundreds of thousands of people die every year from flu. It's normal. And we've lost hundreds of thousands, 500,000 people died from the scamdemic. The China virus. China virus. Sorry about that. And so we have this ongoing thing where it all kind of ties together, this amazing financial agenda for world domination, American domination by the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve actually believes they can continue doing what they do in perpetuity, because they can. They've been doing it since 1913, and they accelerated the program since 1971, and then they went on hyperdrive in the early 2000s, and then they just shot everything to the moon, 2008, and now 2020. They are just literally bombarding the whole planet with American dollars. And so from my perspective, the common sense is that America is crashing, because it's just the same thing. It's called inflation, and then eventually it turns into hyperinflation. So what America is doing right now, it's doing it right now on a massive scale. America is doing exactly what Zimbabwe leaders did to the Zimbabwe population. They created hyperinflation, truly and believing that they could get out of debt just by printing more money. It's the same thing over here in Venezuela. Same problem over here in Argentina. It's the same problem over there in Lebanon. Very, very corrupt governance, very irresponsible governance, kleptocrats, thieves who run the country. It's the same thing in China. China prints money to infinity. It's a complete command control economy. It's paper confetti money, and everybody in China believes it. And so they have no option. The Chinese yuan currency is not used very much, hardly anywhere outside of China. But they want to change. So China copies what America's doing, but it's not working. So what's happening is America is just printing money, so that people can pay back debts. We can pay back our debts by, it's like hyperinflating ourselves out of the debt. So it's fraud. What amounts to total fraud. And when you get to this point where everything implodes, because everyone else starts realizing, wait a minute, we're getting scammed. For example, would you trade your American dollars for Zimbabwe dollars? Would you trade your American dollars for Lebanese money? Would you trade your American dollars for Argentinian bolivars, I think, or Venezuelan? I don't know what they're called. I forgot the names of the currencies. But they have a lot of problems. You don't want those currencies because they're worthless. And that's why these countries that I mentioned are in such deep, deep trouble economically. And America is trying to do the same thing to the rest of the world. And the rest of the world is getting sick of it. They're getting sick of getting scammed by American government and the American banking system. It's fraud. They're sick of it. And the only way they can retaliate, the only way they can defend themselves, the only way they can fight back is, guess what? They print their own money. They print more and more and more. That's what China does. They do it systematically like clockwork. The more money we print, the more money they print. The more money we print, the more money they print. And now the European Union is doing the same thing. The ECB, the European Central Bank, the Swiss banks, the British banks, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, India. They're all of Africa. They have to print more currency, issue more currency to devalue their currency to stay alive. Because everybody on earth is connected through global finance, global trade. So if America keeps making its dollar cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, it makes it harder and harder and harder for these countries over here and everywhere else to export to us, because their goods become, more, I'm getting lost now, sorry. Excuse me. We deflate our dollar more and more and more by printing it. So it makes our exports from America cheaper and cheaper and cheaper abroad. So we can keep corporate America pumping and alive and in business. And all you have to do is watch the stock market and you can see it. It looks like a miracle. The stock market miracle of 2020. Everything implodes in March, and now we're bigger than ever. Ever. How does that happen during a scamdemic? It's impossible if you have honest money. Okay? But with the miracle of the Federal Reserve and the federal government, where they can just go bing and issue all this money to Wall Street and the banks, all of a sudden all that money just gets fed into the market, and they have tons of money. Oh God, sorry, I got frozen there. And it creates a lot of, let's say, false courage. But it also allows the corporations to keep going, and our exports become more and more and more affordable. So that makes it a problem over here. Because how are they going to keep going? Because they need to export a lot of stuff around the world too. And so what happens is, it's called a currency war. And we are now, I would say, officially at war. We've been building up to it. People haven't been talking about it much, but the way I look at it now, America is reaching a point of desperation because it doesn't have anything left it can do. This is exactly what happens when you call it the fall of empire. The fall of an empire, it's always connected with irreconcilable debt. And that's what's happening in America. So we are just doing what we do. We're experts. We are the world's #1 experts at creating debt and outsourcing that debt and inflating away the debt to the rest of humanity for the benefit of a few powerful people over here and here. That's how it works. It's the same thing with the Roman Empire, the British Empire, all of it. It's all the collapse because of extreme debt. A lot of it because of war. It's very expensive to run wars, but it can also be very profitable in the short term. Anyway, that business model is becoming kind of redundant. So what is happening now? Well, a currency war. A lot of people have figured out all over the world that it's actually hazardous to try and trigger a world war, because the chances are if you start a war, you're going to die very soon. We have the capability now. In the United States, we can wipe out China like that. And China is getting strong enough that it thinks it can wipe out anybody and everybody too. The problem with that is that it's very easy to go nuclear. And when you go nuclear, well, then the whole freaking planet gets destroyed. Everything becomes covered in radiation. Everybody gets sick and dies. And of course, there will be a tiny number of people who will survive. They'll all have their bunkers somewhere. And so there's a lot of, let's say, resistance, because when you had the hot wars in the 20th century, World War I and World War II, and all the wars in between, it was a whole century of war. And that's when Pluto was discovered around 1930. So the build-up, and anyway, so we have got to the point now where we cannot unwind who we are and what we are and how we are and why we are the way we are. We have nuclear power. Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto were discovered very recently, and human behavior, human activity has changed dramatically recently. So we have amazing things that have happened to humanity, but at the same time, some very scary, ugly stuff is happening to humanity. It's the same energy, but how does it express? There's a shadow side and there's a light side. So right now, a lot of us on Earth, especially if you're in America, are noticing the shadow side of energy. Especially America, because America is so closely aligned with this ticking clock of Pluto in Capricorn, because America is born with Pluto in Capricorn, 27 degrees. We're heading there now. So again, back to the beginning of the video, I see a ticking clock over the next 4 years where there's going to be a greater and greater and greater implosion of America as we know it, and an increasing pressure to create a new America. The way I see it is the death of America as we know it, because almost every amendment to the Constitution as we know it today has been completely eroded, corrupted, pulverized, undermined, perverted, and destroyed. Okay? So the beautiful thing that we had when we created America, when the South Node was in Aquarius, that has corrupted and corrupted and corrupted to the point where, you might as well just put this in a shredder. It almost doesn't exist anymore except in conversation. However, we're not dead yet. There are enough people in America and around the world who are terrified that this is going to go away. And inside America itself, there are people who are determined to reclaim this beautiful thing that we have. But the problem is, Americans are very comfortable. We have a lot. Okay? And it becomes very, very uncomfortable to go to war, because my personal feeling is that over the next 4 years, this subject here is going to become more prominent in terms of national conversation and global conversations, because nowhere else on earth has this thing. If this goes down in America, I don't know what to say. It's like I don't want to be here anymore. So I'm very scared for America, but I also believe in America. I believe that this will be resurrected. And I think the resurrection will happen mostly during the chapter of history called Pluto and Aquarius, which I think is about an 18-year journey. So the way I'm looking at it here, I know I'm going really big and wide, but that's how I'm built. So I see the next 4 years as tumultuous, like going through the birth canal, in a very, very long, slow, painful birthing process, where the United States comes out at 28 degrees Capricorn for Pluto, which would be like the rebirth. And very, very quickly, within a couple of years, Pluto ends up in Aquarius. So go back, to American history. Before 4th of July 1776, there was a lot of war and convulsion in America, where the people decided enough is enough is enough. We want to get away from these folks over here. Enough is enough. So we're going to declare it. We're going to take it. So they took it. America seized power. It seized its own power. It created its own new thing. This. Okay? It created this. We, the people, created this. 248 years later, whatever it is, this is now completely sick, pulverized, crushed, undermined. But it's going to be reborn. My personal feeling is that it will be reborn. My personal feeling is that all the people who want to destroy this and turn America into China-Erica, they are going to be, I don't want to say the word, okay? I'm just sharing you my personal feelings. And it's going to be ugly, because the people who want to destroy this have a lot of money. They have a lot of power. But it's a very small number of people relative to the common person. Okay? There's a lot of people in America who do not know anything or understand anything that we're talking about. There are people in America who know and understand this very, very well. And eventually, I believe that there will be more and more and more confrontation between we the people and we the people. That's what's happening now in Portland, especially in Portland. Portland and Oregon is a highly polarized area of America. If you look over here at Portland, it's an extreme, like hardcore left-wing communist kind of population. And just across the way over here in Boise, Idaho, there's this extreme hardcore right-wing kind of population, like the Bugaloos and the Proud Boys and all of that. And then you have these violent extremists over here. And they've been going at it all since whatever it was, since January. And they're still going at it. Boff, boff, boff. I'm right. You're wrong. Boff, boff. And I think that's just a glimpse of what's going to be coming in the next few years. So let me go to my notes. It's not the end of the world. Things are just going to be changing. Okay. So this is the United States. This is where we are right now. And we're going through this tumultuous moment in American history. Basically, the rebirth of America is what's going to happen. And America is going through the birthing process right now. When Pluto moves into Aquarius, roughly 2024, this is the energy of revolution. Radical changes, I think, in terms of science and society, and where there's going to be an extreme emphasis on egalitarianism, utopianism, humanity, what is good for we the people. and which is typically what is not good for the governors. So the story over here, it's going to be a tumultuous birth, just like a little baby born, like baby eagles, baby elephants, baby fish. The first few years of life are turbulent. It's terrifying because the little creature has to find a way to survive against everything. And the creature doesn't typically know what it's dealing with. A newborn owl, a newborn whale, a newborn spider, a newborn, eagle, they don't know that they're newborn. They're just these things that are biologically designed to live and survive some way, any way they can. And it's, for human beings, the birth rate is the survival rate is much higher now. But long ago, 150, 200 years ago, the birth rate and the death rate were astronomical. People would just populate and breed and populate without any, concern, because they knew that the death rate was very high. They knew that out of, every 100 children that were born, probably 30, 40 of them were going to just die. And so it's a very turbulent time. Going through the birth canal and then living through the very first chapters of birth, the first 12th sector of your life, it's tumultuous. So we're heading into this right now, and we're all of us going to be alive during this part of American history. Okay? America has the south node in Aquarius, so it's going to be very, very activated for almost 20 years, especially in about 18 to 20 years from now. And the way for that to become activated and for it to work properly is for America to be very creative, very courageous, very bright, very strong in terms of leadership with the Leo North Node. Okay? That's what has to happen, and I believe it will happen. But it's not going to happen easily, okay? Because if you look at the energy of life and death, if you look at the birth of the new America built around this is the ultimate threat to the evil institutions and practices that we have today. So there will be a tremendous amount of resistance to the rebirth. So the way I see it, one of the ways I see it most happening is in terms of finance, money, wealth, and power, because America is very concerned about wealth, money, and finance. It's one of the big topics inside America. If you go to different countries, it's different. If you go to Latin countries or Italian countries, they're much more interested in food and family. Politics is just this thing on the side. It's just like this drama on the side. But the United States is deeply, heavily into wealth, money, finance, and you might as well say power. Okay? So here's my notes. Today the moon is in Pisces, so if any of you guys are feeling really spacey, dreaming, hypersensitive, please accept that as being normal for today. I'm just going to get today's chart because I'm referring to the day's chart over here. All right. So the moon is in Pisces today, conjunct Neptune. So that's a really hyper intuitive, hyper dreamy, hypersensitive aspect. So wherever this part of about, 16 degrees Pisces lies in your chart, you might be feeling extremely hypersensitive in that area of your life right now. This energy over here is extremely turbulent, and it's happening in the financial markets in America and across the world because of the horrible things happening in America. Okay? Next, I don't know if you've also noticed, we're heading very close to a full moon. It's going to be a full moon in Aries. The moon will be in Aries. The sun will be in Libra. Okay? The moon will be in Aries right here. The sun will be in Libra right here. A really hard opposition. The axis of relationship. Literally the axis of relationship on a solar level here on Earth. Aries, the house of self. Libra, the 7th house of relationships. You, other people. I don't know about you, but I'm having extremely turbulent, conflicted relationship dynamics happening with certain people in my life. This is me over here. These are the other people. There's a whole freaking mess coming from other people. And I'm doing my best to be diplomatic, kind, and loving in the Libra fashion, while these other people over here, remember this is an axis, so I am the other people to this person, I am the other people to this person. So it goes, the energy goes both ways, because relationship dynamics goes both ways. So there's a tremendous amount of hostility and conflict going on right now, potentially in relationships. If you've got that somewhere in your life, in your world right now, where you experience very difficult relationship dynamics right now with maybe one or two particular people, or with your banks, or your financing, or with parents or siblings, or something like that, please understand that is to be expected right now, and it's under heavy pressure here. We are supposed to be facing this stuff and dealing with it. We are being forced to deal with really uncomfortable relationship dynamics right now. Okay? It's lit up very, very clearly. Relationship dynamics are heavily aspected and heavily stressed right now. Mars is in Aries, retrograde, okay? Heavily squared to Capricorn. Ugh! Okay? Retrograde. This energy is extremely stressful because the energy of the individual wants to be the individual, but the energy of the corporate leaders, the bosses, the governments, wants the individual to comply. So in other words, look what's happening in China, look what's happening in America. The American government is trying to impose very forcefully its agenda on you, the individual person. The same thing in China. Inside China, the Chinese government, the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, is trying to aggressively, violently enforce its agenda on the people. And the people in China are sick of it. They're already starting to get violent revolutions in China against the CCP. China is in deep trouble. I don't know if you've noticed this, but China itself has its own charts. China is in really deep trouble right now. Financially, economically, politically, environmentally, with food, especially the food crisis and the political crisis. They are having unending devastation with floods and droughts, okay? Floods and droughts, and it's devastating their crops and their proteins and all of that. So China is becoming very aggressive, and they're starting to bully people all over the world, like, give us your food. You are going to sell your food to us. You are going to grow food for us. Thank you very much. And if you don't, we're going to screw your economy like you've never known. So it's getting really ugly over here. And the worse it gets, the worse it's going to get. Watch this. I should show you this by the charts. Hold on. Let me go through my notes here first, then I'll get back to China if I can remember it. So Mars in Aries retrograde, that's not going to be changing anytime soon. It's going to be with us all the way through the elections here in America, November 3rd. And then Mercury is going to go, retrograde very soon, and right up to the election. So things are going to become very, very choppy, okay? Please allow for very highly volatile, unstable conditions over the next 6 weeks, especially as we got through the elections. By this time next week, we have a massive T-square again, okay? The Aries, Capricorn, Libra axis. This thing, next week, okay? Okay, we're coming up to a full moon very, very soon, okay? The moon is going to be here. Moon opposing sun. A lot of stuff is going to come to the surface, perhaps very uncomfortable. And then 2 weeks later, in the middle of October, we're going to have the Libra new moon over here. And by that time, the sun and the moon will be more like this. So it's going to be a much more of a harsh angle. We're going to have a very serious T-square here. So the emphasis, basically, the whole of October is kind of a mess, frankly. It's going to be very volatile, unstable. And a lot of people are just like staying in the background because it's almost too dangerous to get involved in certain relationship dynamics. You're almost better off not engaging in conflict because the conflict has the potential to be very volatile and very uncomfortable. So that's going to be happening in 2 weeks from now. I'm just giving you a heads up. This is what's happening now, tomorrow and the next few days, the full moon, and then we integrate that and we come to the new moon in a few weeks. All right? So please expect ongoing turbulence for the rest of the month. Then, I'm just kind of giving you a heads up here. October turbulence, November turbulence, December turbulence as more and more planets go direct. We're going to start to see rapid shifts in the way, I would say, American politics and financial and banking things start to open up. And we're going to start sensing by the end of 2020, once we go into 2021, I'm just giving a little bit of a forecast here. The Aquarius vibes are really going to jump out, okay? Because Saturn and Jupiter are going to start shifting into Aquarius, okay? Jupiter and Saturn are going to be shifting over here into the 0 degree marks of Aquarius. So that's going to give us a little taste of what's going to happen over the next 18 years, or more like 20 years, after Pluto enters Aquarius. So be prepared. There's going to be a lot of shifts and changes in global American finance, American politics. Okay? It's starting to happen right now. And I'm going to show you something in a minute. This Aquarian vibe is highly relevant to the United States. And guess what? It's highly relevant to China too. Who would have guessed? There is a very sick marriage between China and America, okay? This is like a very sick marriage. In some ways, it's very glossy and productive and opportunistic on the outside, and how amazing China is today and how amazing USA is today. But deep inside, it's a very sick, abusive relationship. And you're going to see that unfolding over the next few years. Let me show you. Over here. This is China. This is the chart of China. Guess what? Have a look at this. You know how the United States has an Aquarius south node? Look at this. China has the moon in Aquarius, okay? Right on the ascendant. Now watch this. Can you see a shared identity here? America has the moon in Aquarius, born with moon in Aquarius. China, born with moon in Aquarius. It's almost like they are linked by birth, but they are very different characters, okay? China has, this is like the chart for China. Okay, so this is the birth date, 1st of October 1949. Okay, you can hardly see that here. So if I take this as the birth date for China, this is what the China chart looks like, just in the way America has a chart, okay? So, over here, China gave birth to itself with a Libra sun, Mercury in Libra, and Neptune in Libra. So wherever Neptune lies, there's always the potential for fraud, deception, lies, betrayal, deceit. So what I see, if I look at this as a person, this is someone who has the ability to convey themselves as a really nice, caring person who always has the best interests of other people. It's people. The People's Republic of China. But the way I look at it is it's a scam. It's a fraud. It's a lie. Okay? Because when you go deeper inside, the China sun, Mercury and Neptune, is heavily conflicted. Okay, when you see someone with a very heavily afflicted sun, that tends to indicate that there's problems, you know? So, look at this. Uranus, hard square to all of this. Jupiter in Capricorn, hard square to all of this. Notice how China has Jupiter in Capricorn in the high degrees, sort of like America has Pluto in Capricorn to the high degrees. Again, these are strong connections to America. America, America, okay? Uranus in Cancer, there's a strong link to America, okay? Now, here's the thing that really, really troubles me. See this? China is born with Pluto conjunct Mars in Leo. So it has the potential, when it works well, it's fantastic. But when it doesn't work, it's a nightmare. This could easily, because it's heavily squared, okay? The midheaven, Venus is exactly on the midheaven in Scorpio. Venus in Scorpio is very, very intense about relationships, and it's heavily squared. Okay, when you have Mars squared Venus like this, that can mean problems in relationships between other people, the self and other and the self. So I'm just going to say it, okay? I see this as characteristics of abuse, characteristics of an abuser. A highly conflicted sun with an extremely potentially violent Mars-Pluto alignment in Leo. This is the energy of like an emperor, the energy of emperor gone wrong. In other words, it's great when the emperor is in a good mood, but it sucks when the emperor is in a bad mood, because when you have an emperor in a totalitarian communist regime, whenever the emperor is angry, it's bad for everybody. So you don't want to be on the wrong side of that. And this is a very clear willingness to use violence indiscriminately without any justification or rationale, which is basically what the CCP, the China's Communist Party, does. Sadly, the people of China don't really have a birth chart, from what I can tell, because they've been going for like, 5,000 years with multiple different identities. But this is a highly defined moment in history. China gave birth to itself and christened itself as the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, 1st of October 1949, just after World War II. So I see this as the energy of extreme abuse of power, like an extreme abuser, like a narcissistic, violent abuser, like a sex abuser. Not even a sex, just someone who's, let's say, compulsively violent. Okay? China is notorious for using random and indiscriminate violence against its people, depending on whatever mood the government is in at the time, while at the same time portraying itself as like, I love you guys, I care about you, we're doing everything we can for you, the people. All you have to do is do what I say. If you don't do what I say, then I beat you up. Okay? It's very simple. That's the energy of an abuser. So, America and the United States have kind of a sick connection in some ways, okay? They benefit off each other, they exploit each other, but each of them are kind of abusive in their own way. Each of them have degraded in their own way. The beauty of America has become degraded. The wonderful utopian agenda of communist China became very degraded very, very quickly. And it's going to get much, much worse. Why? Why do I say that? Well, start looking at the year 2021. Jupiter and Saturn are going to be transversing here for a few years. When Jupiter goes into Aquarius over here, everything about China will expand. All the wonders of China will expand. All the horrors of China will expand. When Saturn enters Aquarius in 2021, everything that's out of alignment with reality check police about China, with the laws of nature, the laws of the universe, universal laws, all of that stuff will be exposed, and China is going to end up in a deep pile of doo-doo. It's going to get really, really bad for China. Okay? It's going to be like a Saturn return on the ascendant for China. You do not want to be on the wrong side of a Saturn return, but that's what's happening for China. And their Saturn is actually over, where is it? In Virgo, okay? So they would have a Saturn return over here. But the way I'm looking at it, I'm treating it like as Saturn is coming back here into the first house of self and identity. Saturn, the planet that rules laws, restrictions, teaching, hard lessons. Like if you screw up, you suffer. So China is really suffering. Number one, they've radically overexpanded in terms of their economy and their abuse of power. They radically overexpanded in terms of how they exploit the environment. And so my personal feeling is that China, in its own way, is going to go through its own massive implosion, just like the United States. So these two global phenomena, okay, let me go back over here, people. Okay. You know how when I make astrodoodles, I like to put the little red marks? It's like giving people a heads up, like be careful, just watch out, like a weather forecast, like, hello, it's going to be mild and sunny over here. Fine. But what you need to do is watch out for the hurricanes and tornadoes over here. Be careful. Shelter now, evacuate now. So that's really all I'm kind of doing is like a little astrological weather report. But I'm focusing at one moment like here, now, right now, today. You know, moon in Pisces and everything. Full moon coming up, moon in Aries, okay? But I'm also looking over the next 20 years. And over the next 4 years, over the next 20 years, I see massive, convulsive, revolutionary upheaval inside America. Mostly to do with politics, governance, finance, banking, and attempts at reclaiming the Constitution. The attempts at reclaiming and rebuilding this in better ways than ever imagined before that are good for we the people. That agenda was going to meet extreme resistance from the people who don't want we the people to work. There are the people in America who want to destroy this, okay? So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of internal corporate or government or financial warfare inside America. Now, starting in 2021, we've got about 4 months, okay? October, November, December, and January. Once we get into January and February 2021, things are going to be different. Jupiter and Saturn are going to be in Aquarius. It's going to really trigger things for America and for China. The way I look at it, it's going to be really bad news for China. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong. With Jupiter there, it's not going to just go wrong. It's going to go wrong in a big way. Okay? That's just my forecast. And as a result, the China's CCP, they're going to become more aggressive, more belligerent, more thuggish, more abusive, more violent to their own people and to their neighbors, okay? As they become more and more desperate for power and control and food. Okay? Like same thing but different in America. The Jupiter and Aquarius, Saturn thing in Aquarius is going to hit the American Aquarius thing, the American South Node, which is very deeply bedded in, like it's bedded into our soul at birth. So there's going to be a strong wake-up call in America, where I think we the people are going to start waking up, like, what's happening? There's going to be 40 million people at least, maybe 100 million people in America who are going to start to wake up and say, man, I wished I'd watched that Terror-Illumination channel, last year or the year before. Why didn't anybody tell me? Because what's going to be happening in America, the first thing, my guess from what I can see, is that the Federal Reserve, in collusion with the federal government, they're going to issue the first big CBDC, Central Bank Digital Currency. That's going to be called the FedNow card. It's going to look just like a little debit card, but it comes from the Federal Reserve. And it'll be very, very similar to the Chinese CBDC that they're already doing over here, and similar to other CBDCs they're doing over here. Okay, so there's something very frightening about this FedNow, frightening about the CBDC for America, because there's nowhere to hide, there's no privacy. because it's basically taking the federal agenda, printing more money to infinity, but not just to corporations and banks and Wall Street and the government, but to every person in America. You're going to be connected to the Federal Reserve Bank. They're going to track every single aspect of your life, where you do your groceries, where you pick up your lottery tickets, where you get your gasoline, what you buy for Christmas presents, where whatever your financial investments are, wherever your debts are, okay? And just like they do in China over here, they're going to have a social score because they can watch everything. There's no privacy. Even though we have extremely powerful privacy laws in this country, I guarantee the Federal Reserve and the federal government will find a way to usurp those privacy laws. So if they want to, they're going to try and turn this country into China-America using the FedNow card. And there's going to be enough people in America who are so desperate, so broke, so unemployed, and so unaware that they're just going to take the money. And they're not going to care. Okay? So the Federal Reserve and the federal government, they're going to prey on the weak. They're going to prey on the poor. They're going to prey on those who are unaware. And they're going to propagate their cancer, their massive evil tumor type agenda across America. They're going to do it as far and wide as they can, as fast as they can, because the Federal Reserve and the federal government are perfectly aware that there's this thing called honest money that's watching them. And in America, more than anywhere else, there's going to be a developing war between fake money and honest money. The fake money is all the stuff that comes out of here. The honest money is money that you earn from your sweat, your labor, your investments, things where you've had a chance to save, okay? It's a very different world, fake money and honest money. So, honest money is the enemy of fake money. Fake money is the enemy of honest money. Fake money is going to do whatever it can to impose its evil agenda across America. And we, the people, we need to be aware of this. You need to figure out, what are you going to do? Literally, what are you going to do? How are you going to protect your money? How are you going to protect your privacy? How are you going to protect yourself? How are you going to protect your loved ones, your land, your assets, your property, your gold, your bank account, your silver, your home, your assets, all the things that you own, hard assets that you worked for? How are you going to protect that? I'm just asking. So, that's kind of what I'm sensing right now. Let me go back to my notes again. Sorry, I didn't mean to get such a long video and get so carried away. Hold on. Whew! I guess it's the full moon. I'm all fired up, even though I'm really very tired. Okay, I think I've actually covered some of the notes that I wanted to mention here. Okay, so I mentioned this over it. We talked about all of this stuff, all right? The next thing I talked about, FedNow. This is going to be your own FedNow account with the Federal Reserve. You don't have to worry about Chase or Wells Fargo or Bank of America or your credit union or U.S. Bank or anything. You're going to have an account directly with the Fed. It's just like what they did when they issued your stimulus payments. It goes straight to your bank, or they send a check direct to you, but they're going to streamline it now with this FedNow card. It's a central bank digital currency, okay? It's for America. So keep your eyes out. It's on the horizon. It's happening in other countries across the world because they kind of don't have any choice. And all of that stuff is what I call fake money. So anyway, we talked about the problems in Africa, Argentina, Venezuela, Lebanon, and all the countries that are suffering from hyperinflation. The United States is doing the same thing. It's very tragic, very sad for America and for Americans, and from there to the rest of the world. There is an attempt at honest money. So the people who are trying to create honest money are in the crypto world. They're interested in crypto things like, bitcoins and things like that. Gold, silver, hard assets like houses, real estate, um, intellectual property, rental properties, anything that, generates wealth through labor, through innovation, through work. And then the value of your labor is stored in a way that is honest, okay? Because if you store your money over here, it's going to be inflated to worthlessness. So that's why people are becoming more and more interested in learning how to protect themselves, their finances, by looking deeper and deeper into crypto, gold, silver, hard assets, and so on. That's a whole other movie. So we covered that point. But this is still very early days yet. The war that I was talking about between fake money and real money and fake money, that's what's building up right now. The fake money is just little bits of paper. Those are debt notes. They're called dollar bills and coins. This is real money. This stuff here is real money, okay? So it's still very early days. But there are people in Washington, you have to trust me, there are people in Washington, in America right now, who are in very powerful high places, who are trying to find ways to incorporate real money into the American economy at the same time that these monsters are doing what they do. It's very, very difficult balance, but it has to happen and it will happen. In other words, these people are working inside the system. And the deeper they go into the system, the more and more these folks are trying to consolidate their power. The last points on my notes are, we already talked about it, the big historical movements of Pluto going to Aquarius around 2024. We talked about the Pluto return. We did all that. We did all that over here. Okay, thank you very much. So I think that does about, all of it here for today. I guess I could, does anybody have any questions? Or if anybody wants to make any enormous donations, if you are a multi-billionaire and if you got some change, feel free to send it over to Illumination by Super Chat. And anyway, if anybody has some comments or questions, I'd be willing to stay here for a couple of minutes. But otherwise, I'm, pretty much said what I got to say for today. And I'm hoping it helps you all to have a bigger, broader perspective on your life than you had a couple of hours ago, if that makes any sense. Let me see who's here. Okay, hello everybody. I see you, Nikki. I see you, Robin. Let's be good at barter. Yes. There's some people, they're really advocating go back to the land. Find ways, simplify, reduce, sell off, get rid of all your debt. Find ways to get rid of debt. File bankruptcy if you have to. Get rid of debt. Mortgages, car payments, college loans, credit cards, healthcare, whatever you can. Reduce, simplify. Reduce and simplify so you can get back to a much more authentic life. Happiness is not 100% dependent on the size of your car or how new your car is. We have to have shelter. We have to have cars. We're very lucky in America. We've got things like running water, houses, electricity, internet, cars. We have all that. We have all of that in abundance. But it's the way it's operated and the way it's exchanged that has become very corrupted. Let's have a look. Double, triple inflation will happen, yeah. Yeah. Nobody knows the answer. Nobody has the answers right now. We're living through history. The answers are going to unfold around us, but we have to be aware. We don't want to be victims. I don't want to be a victim. I don't want you guys to be victims. It doesn't matter what side you're on politically. With what's happening with the federal government and the Federal Reserve, that's affecting your pocket. That's affecting your wallet. So just bear that in mind. Hello, Michelle. I'm just checking through the chats. Hello, Marlene. You might have all gone by now. I'm not sure. Hello, Starzy over there in Illinois. And Ivona over there in New Jersey. Hello, hello. Robin there in Texas. I see you. Tina over there in Texas. And let's see. Love Triber in Nevada. Greetings. Love you guys. Thank you all for hanging out. I'm just going to do one last little check. Over here. Give me a second. I'm just doing last minute checkups. Nikki's saying, I can't wait for Saturn to leave Capricorn. I get it. I understand you. Hi, Starzy. Thanks for hanging in. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys find ways to get your notifications because I don't have any control over it anymore. Like I said at the very beginning of the show, probably the best way you can help with the channel is to become a member. Check the links below. Donations, all of that stuff helps. It's really hard to keep the channel going because it's impossible to grow. So I have to make do with what I've got here. So I love doing this. I wish I could do more. So anyway, I hope this helps you all. Hello, Angie Love. Oh, look. Angie Love, hi there. Yes, I've already downsized everything. Already done that, preparing next year's garden. Glad to know how to fish and hunt. Wow, fishing, that's fantastic, Angie Love. That's an inspiration. That's fantastic. Not everybody can do that. A lot of people in America, for example, they live in cities. It's very hard to grow a full herb garden. It's very hard to do your own fishing. It's very hard to grow all your own fruits and vegetables and potatoes and rice and all those things. But some people are finding ways to do little bits. You know, people are very innovative. If you have land, you're extremely fortunate. If you have arable land, if you have high quality arable land with a slight slope and a stream or a lake and 4 seasons that are fairly moderate, that's very, very valuable, okay? If you can find a way to own that or downsize so that you can have as little debt as possible and all those good things. Honestly, inside of me right now, some of you know I have this yearning to be on the land. I live in a city. Right now I'm living over here in Las Vegas. It's a fast, vibrant city, but it's also very sick because of the pandemic. Just like America is very sick from the pandemic. And I have all these beautiful dreams of going to the land and having a small community where we can have visitors coming from all over the world, like little Airbnb things, little tiny homes set off in the distance, and it's green and rich and luscious, and there's lots of chickens, there's lots of plants and herbs and fruits and vegetables on the land, and we find ways to protect and defend ourselves. Yay. Wow. Thank you, Gabby. I'm so glad you're still here, Gabby, because I thought I'd lost you. Earlier this year, I thought we'd lost you. Yes, Angie Love. Famine. I'm serious. In China right now, okay, just a couple of pointers. In China right now, they have about 600 million people that live off less than about $15 to $20 a month. Okay? Have you ever heard about them? Do you ever hear about them? Will you ever hear about them? No. Okay? They are surplus to requirement. Even the Chinese government doesn't know what to do with them, so they ignore them. In China, they're having devastating events, weather events, with their crops. All of their crops over here in the wet regions, all of their crops in the desert regions up here. This is where they grow all their wheat and corn and rice and soy stuff over wheat and corn and soy up here. Down here, there are a lot of rice and a lot of pig farms and things and the fruits and vegetables. But they're freaking desperate. China has sent out. They have like 30,000 fishing ships that go all over here. All over here. Thank you, Gabby, again. Thank you so much. And they don't care about international laws about fishing and fishing rights and everything. They are so freaking hungry. They're so desperate that they have to feed 1.4 billion people every single day. That's a lot of food, a lot of cooking, a lot of pee, a lot of poop, all day, every day. Okay? It's the same thing happening in India. A lot of environmental degradation. They are so vastly populated, and it's, you know, we're creating, humanity is creating so much garbage, it's just spreading all over the world. It's all through the oceans. You know that. Something's eating whole in your plants. It might be insects. My guess is that it's little bugs. Maybe it's moths. I don't know. I don't really know, Fritali. Hello, Fritali. Famine is coming. Yeah. I mean, you do see glimpses of it around. There's a channel called Ice Age Farmer, and he tracks all the famine across the world, especially inside America, where there's a lot of problems with farming agriculture, with cows, pigs, chickens, turkeys, fruits and vegetables. There's a lot of stuff happening in America where some of the farms are just plowing their food under, or they're not picking their fruits and vegetables, or they're shutting down the meat plants because of government mandates, all to do with the pandemic, the scamdemic, the China virus. So it is affecting food in America. I'm pretty lucky. I have very modest needs with food, and I feel that there's plenty around for now. But over here, we're prepping anyway. Yeah. Yep, for sure. Okay, we're talking about gardening now. Yeah, you gotta have a plan. You gotta have a plan, Angie. Angie, love, I forgot. Where are you, Angie? Did you say Illinois? Angie. Where are you, Angie? I forgot. Anyway. It's actually really, it's much harder than you think to grow your own food, grow your own crops. It really helps if you have really good land and a lot of experience. Without that, it can be very, very difficult. You can have all the best intentions, you can watch all the best YouTube videos, but you have to have certain ingredients. Fertilizer, good land, good practices, all that stuff. Hello, Diana. Hello. Oh, you're in Michigan. Thanks, Angie, love. Over the years, I've actually had little gardens. I've had herb gardens, and I've had succulent gardens. But I was never able to keep them because of different property laws and the rights of different. Anyways, so I'm kind of brokenhearted when it comes to home gardening. I've had a lot of failures, and so I'm a little bit scared of it. Oh, Diana, you're over there in. Wait a minute, I know where. Hold on, Diana. Yeah. Yeah, Diana Lynn, you're over there in sort of towards Joshua Tree, I think, right? Is that what it is? Let me just find out. Yeah, so Diana Lynn, you're over here, right? You're just over here and sort of in a desert area. So it's very, very hard. I mean, you have to do really serious irrigation and very, very close observation and maintenance to keep a garden going in a desert kind of environment. You have to have very seriously, highly controlled conditions. Otherwise, it's really, really tough. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, you're right, Angela. It does have very fertile land. I know they say a lot of bad things. There's Michigan. I know they say a lot of bad things about Michigan because of Detroit and everything. But there's some wonderful places like Ann Arbor, a beautiful little town. And you've got the lakes. You have a lot of fresh water up here. And so, Michigan, in some places they call it like a depressed economy in certain places. But if somebody wanted to relocate from a very expensive neighborhood like here, you could consider going to Michigan and, get some land, things like that. All sorts of things that people are doing. There are people all over America are starting to figure out, what am I going to do now? People in these parts of America are starting to get so hot, they're thinking like, well, maybe we should move north. Maybe we should move over here. Hurricanes and floods and tornadoes are starting to get so intense over here, and the ocean is rising over here. They're starting to think, where am I going to go? Where are we going to go? Is everybody going to move to Canada? I don't think so. Maybe they will. Diana Lynn, you had wonderful veggies. Oh, okay, that's cool. I know it's possible. Over here, it's very, very hot. This is very fertile land around here. They have lots of fruits and everything, citrus, you know that. Yeah. I have family. I'm a white Euro-mutt American. I'm from like a German and French background, so I have family over here. From birth, and I have family from over here and from over here, this area, and up in over here. So, we all have our little bits of mixtures of whatever. All right, well, Diana, they haven't laid eggs yet. I don't know how to do that stuff. I have a loved one, and she has close to 100 chickens, and they lay eggs 24/7. I don't want to say that to depress you, but it is possible. But their environment, you're in much more of a desert environment, so I don't know how chickens like it. Okay? Whoa, Path Traveler. That sounds interesting. Ashes? What's that? Ashes, coffee grinds, and eggshells. Huh. Interesting. Oh. Goodness gracious. All right, well, I'm thirsty and I'm hungry, so I'm going to wrap it up, people. It's been a wonderful, wonderful time together. I'm going to depart now. Let you guys live your day. Have a super, super day.